Being the leader of a country means that you have a higher profile than everyone else, and it's almost impossible to go anywhere without someone recognizing you. But at the same time, it's also important to be visible and seemingly accessible to the citizens of the country. There's a fine balancing act between celebrating the movements of a leader and ensuring their security and safety. Today, we'll be taking a look at 15 of the best presidential convoys in the world. Number 15. United States. Probably the most famous presidential motorcade of all is, of course, the one used by the President of the United States. As the leader of the free world, they're required to travel to places around the globe and domestically. And not only does the convoy ensure they're able to do this in comfort and safety, but it also allows them to run the country as effectively when they're on the move as when they're in the White House. The main vehicle that's used by the president is the Beast, which is a nickname for the Cadillac with some serious upgrades, such as military bulletproof glass, a separate oxygen supply in case of chemical attack, and spare vials of the president's blood in case they're injured. This vehicle alone is worth around $15 million, but there are plenty of others too that drive alongside it in a support capacity. The motorcade normally has as many as 23 Chevrolet Suburbans that are used to carry equipment that's needed, as well as personnel such as the president's staff, security officials, advisors, and the medical team. And there's a further 8 BMW motorcycles that are normally ridden by uniformed officers and travel in front of and behind the main vehicles to help open and close the roads that the motorcade is planning to cross. Number 14. India. India is one of the most highly and densely populated countries on Earth, and with an increasingly important economy, the president is overseeing a government that many believe will become a superpower of the future. It's no surprise then that they have an incredibly impressive motorcade for traveling to different regions around India, and this one also doubles as the official transport for important visiting dignitaries too. Recently, the government received a brand new vehicle that would become the official presidential car, a custom-built Mercedes Maybach S600 Pullman Guard. It features level 9 ballistic protection, which means it can withstand an attack by handguns, military rifles, and explosives, and is fitted with a backup air supply to keep the passengers safe in case of gas or chemical assault. Also featuring run-flat tires and active tire pressure monitoring system, surrounding night vision cameras, automatic fire suppression systems, and automatically deploying shields, it's a protective vehicle fitting of such a high-profile person. The Maybach doesn't have any number plates and instead has the Indian flag in place of where they would be. And elsewhere in the convoy, there's the former presidential vehicle, another black Mercedes-Benz armored limo that can be used as an emergency backup if anything goes wrong with the primary one. Number 13. Germany. The German Chancellor oversees one of the wealthiest countries on the planet, and one that's renowned for its engineering prowess, particularly with car design. So I guess it's perhaps fitting that they have one of the most elegant and luxurious convoys of any country. Since taking over as leader in 2021, Olaf Scholz has adopted to use a Mercedes S680 Guard as his official car, and it's a substantial upgrade in comparison to the civilian version available at retail. It has, for example, 2 tons of additional armor to make it bullet and bomb-proof, and a fresh air tank to protect passengers against gas or smoke attacks, and a series of other enhancements that are top secret and impossible to see from the outside. Thought to cost around $750,000, this is one of the most secure vehicles ever made, other than those built for the US president. Alongside the central Mercedes, the German motorcade also features several BMW 5 Series cars, which, while not the most extravagant vehicles, certainly ensures the entourage of the Chancellor are able to travel in comfort and style. There are a further 3 Mercedes 5-class vehicles that are used to transport 7 people in each, and mainly carry security personnel and a further 4 motorcycles as support. One of the interesting things about the German convoy is that, as well as being cheaper than many others, it also produces the lowest carbon emissions of any of the larger countries on the list, with the main Mercedes itself producing just 1/10 of the emissions as the Beast that's used by the US president. Number 12. Russia. Vladimir Putin, as the president of Russia, is notorious for his anxiety about his own safety, and based on his actions, it's clear to see why there are many people, or even countries, that would try to make a move on him if given the chance. It's for this reason that he is the second most costly presidential convoy in the world, at just a slightly lower cost than that of the American president, and it's virtually a secure palace on wheels. The Russian president's main vehicle is a custom-built Aurus Sonat, which was made as a joint project between engineers from NAMI and Porsche. Weighing more than 6 tons and measuring 23 feet or 7 meters long, millions of dollars worth of enhanced security features have been added to the vehicle. But quite what that involves isn't entirely clear, as it's been kept a secret by the president's security detail. Alongside the main car, there are 3 Mercedes G-Class luxury SUVs that are able to handle virtually any terrain and have a top speed of 137 miles or 220 kilometers per hour. If anything goes wrong with the main Aura Senat, which is much slower, the president would be quickly taken into one of these SUVs to make a quick getaway. As with most other convoys, the Russian one is also accompanied by 6 BMW motorcycles that are used to assess any crowds that they pass and ensure the roads have been blocked. Number 11. France. The French government has a long history of providing official state cars to the country's leaders, so much so that in Paris there's an entire museum dedicated to them. Originally, these were ceremonial vehicles that allowed their passengers to stand and wave to adoring crowds. But in the modern world, where politics is so divisive that there could be a threat around any corner, they're now purely with safety in mind. The French president actually has a choice of several vehicles to use for transport, which are officially armored top-spec versions of a Citroën DS5 Hybrid 4, a Citroën C6, a Renault Velsatis, or a Peugeot 607, all of which are of course made in France. With his election in 2017, however, Emmanuel Macron added several new vehicles to the presidential garage, which included a DS7 Crossback, which was the first luxury SUV to be released by DS Automobiles, as well as a Peugeot 5008, a Renault E-Space, and an Akhmat military command car for use during military parades. No matter what car he chooses to travel in, the others will still join the convoy too, which means his entire entourage is effectively traveling with the same level of armored protection as the president himself. Number 10. Australia. Most world leaders choose to travel in cars that, because of their upgrades, stand out from the others in their convoys, but they usually at least have dark colors that help them blend in with the others. The Australian Premier takes a different approach though, and his car you'd actually easily notice, a pristine white BMW 7 Series. Known as C1, which stands for Commonwealth 1, which is shown on its number plate along with an Australian flag on the hood. It otherwise looks like a typical 7 Series, but it has, of course, undergone a significant overhaul. Engineers have added bulletproof doors and windows, along with a bomb-proof floor, as well as a fuel tank that's separately armored to ensure it doesn't explode under attack. Any other dignitaries within the motorcade will also be transported in another of the large fleet of BMW 7 Series that the government recently purchased, and they're accompanied by armored BMW X5s for the rest of the entourage and security team, as well as a number of BMW motorcycles responsible for scouting the route ahead. Number 9. South Korea. As a country that shares a border with a nation that there are ongoing hostilities with, South Korea invests heavily into the protection of its leaders just in case agents from the north try to take action against them. This has led to the development of one of the most advanced motorcades in the world and is the envy of most other countries. Carrying the president is either a Hyundai Nexo SUV, a Genesis EQ900, or a Mercedes Maybach W222 S600 Guard. Each one is completely redesigned from the original spec and are believed to have cost in excess of $1 million each. But when you hear what they have, you'll understand why. Each provides secure communications and satellite connectivity, along with 360-degree infrared cameras, an automatic fire extinguishing system, and a fresh oxygen system to counteract gas or smoke attacks. They're armored with bulletproof glass, run-flat tires, and all the metal has been replaced with bulletproof and bomb-proof sheets. There's a non-explosive gas tank that's surrounded by foam to prevent fuel from spilling, and the car itself can't actually be opened from the inside and requires a Presidential Security Service agent to open it from the outside. When in the motorcade, there usually will be at least 30 other vehicles, such as medical cars, ones that carry the security team, the president's assistants, and a couple of decoy and spare vehicles too. When they're not in use, all the vehicles are stored in a high-security warehouse, which has ensured that a range of classified upgrades, which haven't been revealed in public, have remained secret, particularly when it comes to details of the convoy's counter-offensive capabilities. Number 8. Spain. As with other European leaders, the Spanish Prime Minister has access to an upgraded Audi A8L with armor plating and run-flat tires that cost well over $500,000 when it was acquired. And in recent years, the fleet has been expanded to include a Mercedes-Benz S600 and 2 Audi 6 vehicles. But this isn't the most impressive convoy that's used in Spain. Instead, that honor goes to the country's king, as the royal family owns a huge collection of classics. They have a number of armored cars that travel with them, such as a Cadillac Brougham, Audi 6s, and Mercedes-Benz S-Classes. But for state occasions, they have 3 Rolls-Royce Phantom 4 cars from 1952. Only 18 of these were ever built, all of which were for heads of state. The Spanish royals have one 4-door cabriolet version, with 2 hardtop limousines, and it's the cabriolet that's particularly special. Upgraded for King Philippe's wedding at a cost of $500,000. It now has heavy-duty air conditioning and a glazed, bulletproof armored bubble to protect the passengers sitting in the rear, while allowing them to be as visible as possible. Number 7. Canada. He may well like to talk on the world stage, but when it comes to his motorcade, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau keeps things pared back in what is still one of the cheapest convoys of all the world leaders. Nonetheless, it's still an event to watch this convoy traveling through the country, and you definitely know about who was passing by. The main vehicle the Prime Minister travels in is a Chevrolet Suburban, which is the same type that accompanies the US President. While the American motorcade has 23 of them, the Canadian one just has 4, and they're all identical. This means that aggressors wouldn't know which of the cars the Prime Minister is actually in, and this is one element that helps with his security. All of the Suburbans have been upgraded with bulletproof glass, spare oxygen tanks, and concealed weapons that can be used to fight back against an attack, and were mainly chosen because of their off-road ability, which means they can escape virtually any evolving threat. At the head of the Canadian convoy, there's usually a Chrysler 300 sedan, which acts as the flagship car, and it's usually the one that crowds cheer at, because it looks a bit more special than the others, and it seems like the one the Prime Minister should be in. It's important to note that the Canadian convoy would be bigger, and the government certainly could afford for it to be, but it was a conscious decision by the leader to reduce the number of vehicles to limit the perception of government wastage and to lessen emissions. Virtue signaling at its best. Number 6. Brunei. The current Sultan of Brunei has, over his lifetime, acquired a huge garage of cars, which is now regarded as the largest private collection owned by anyone on the planet. At an estimated value of more than $5 billion and made up of more than 7,000 vehicles, he's able to choose the perfect ride for every occasion and is accompanied by his trusted advisors in equally impressive support vehicles. He owns, for example, 11 Ferrari F40s, an incredibly rare model, and each one was customized with cosmetic and performance modifications, as well as being toughened to keep the Sultans safe whenever they're being used. The Sultan also has 10 of the 106 McLaren F1s that were produced in the 1990s, at least 4 Bugatti EB110s, and more than 500 Rolls-Royce vehicles, including 4 custom Phantom 6s and a 24-karat gold-plated Silver Spur 2. Needless to say, whenever the Sultan is driven to places within the country, he chooses one of his flashiest vehicles and is surrounded by a convoy of up to 30 other vehicles, most of which are security cars, which ensure the roads are clear. He's the only person in the country not beholden to speed limits, so is said to often unleash the full power of these supercars on the national roads. Number 5. China. President Xi Jinping of China doesn't travel in a custom-built vehicle like the presidents of America and Russia do. But don't let that make you underestimate just how secure and comfortable he is when he's in a convoy. His motorcade is made up of 5 Hongqi L5s, made by the Chinese vehicle manufacturer, and has a name for itself in the country for its supreme comfort that's on a similar level to something like a Rolls-Royce. Each of these costs upward of $1 million and have been enhanced with security features too. What's clever about this Chinese convoy is that because the president and his closest entourage are all driven in the same vehicles, the only way you can know which one contains the president if it's actively being shown by a flag or increased security. If his whereabouts are being guarded for safety reasons, the other 4 cars act as decoy vehicles, which makes it far more difficult for aggressors to target the right one. Again, motorcycles are used to secure the route as the convoy travels, but instead of having the BMW bikes that are often used by other world leaders, these ones are Haoju GW250J bikes that have been built in China. Another thing that's different about this motorcade is that it's only ever used when traveling in China. If visiting other countries, the Chinese president usually prefers to use transport that's provided by the host government. Number 4. Indonesia. When traveling around in the country's capital, both the president and deputy president of Indonesia are afforded a highly advanced and planned motorcade designed to keep them safe in the face of anything they may encounter. The government owns several armor-plated Mercedes-Benz S600 guards, which have either an RI-1 or Indonesia 1 license plate, and usually featured an Indonesian flag on the hood. Their entourage accompanies them in Toyota Hiaces, and their security detail and support staff travel in a mixture of Mercedes-Benz G-Classes, Nissan X-Trails, Toyota Fortunas, and Toyota Land Cruisers, which are further backed up by Volkswagen Caravelle that carries a communications jamming device. Police officers escort the vehicle on Yamaha FZ1 motorcycles, and there's a garage of black armor-plated BMWs and a Mercedes S-Class that are available for use by visiting dignitaries and VIP guests of the government. Number 3. UK. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom doesn't have anywhere near as many threats to their lives as, say, the President of the United States, so their convoy when traveling around the country is much smaller. The types of cars used, however, means that this would be one of the most fun motorcades to ride in because of the comfort and speed they're able to reach. The main car used for the Prime Minister themselves is a Jaguar XJ Sentinel, which is an upgraded version of the Jaguar XJ that has added Kevlar backing and blast protection, as well as gun ports that can be used by security officers if the worst happens. Despite the extra weight that these modifications add to the vehicle, it still has a top speed of 123 miles or 197 kilometers per hour, which is significantly faster than the 60 miles or 96 kilometers per hour that the US President's Beast is believed to max out at. Accompanying the Jaguar are 3 Range Rover Sports, which are used to carry security personnel and important members of the Prime Minister's entourage. And like many others, a fleet of 4 BMW motorcycles are used for initial crowd control and ensuring the streets are clear for the main vehicles to proceed. Number 2. Malaysia. As is the case with most countries that produce vehicles, the Malaysian government officials are, by law, required to travel in cars that are made domestically. The Prime Minister therefore uses a stretched Proton Perdana that's been enhanced with armor plating and various other security features. And when traveling in a convoy, will be accompanied by a team of Pasukan Gerakan Khas, which are the country's special military branch, and they use armored Volvo XC90s, Proton X70s, and Honda CR-Vs, as well as Honda VFR 800 and Kawasaki GTR motorcycles, with additional police cars and bikes to complete the motorcade. The country also has a large royal family who travel in specialized vehicles as well, with the Yang di Pertuan Agong usually traveling in a red stretched Bentley Arnage, a blue Bentley Continental Flying Spur, or a black Maybach 62. The sultans of the country travel in Rolls-Royce Phantoms or Mercedes S-Classes, all of which are also surrounded by countless other cars and bikes to protect them and keep the roads clear. Number 1. North Korea. Being the dictator of what's arguably the most detached state from the rest of the world means that Kim Jong-un doesn't exactly have many friends internationally or domestically, so his security team goes to extreme lengths to keep him safe when he's traveling from place to place. Very few people in North Korea actually own a car, which means Kim's $1.6 million Maybach S600 certainly stands out as it's driving around, especially when it's surrounded by any blacked-out security vehicles and countless officers on motorcycles. He's also known to own a Range Rover L322, and his fleet has to adapt more than most others, depending on where he's going. That's because the infrastructure in North Korea isn't exactly as well developed as elsewhere, so if the supreme leader is visiting the countryside or mountainous regions, he needs to travel in vehicles that are able to handle the tricky terrain that they'll encounter. When he's traveling internationally, though, he has no such concerns, and after reaching a country on his private train, he's proudly driven around in a Rolls-Royce Phantom 7 or a Mercedes Maybach W222 S600 Pullman Guard, something that has suspiciously been acquired since sanctions should have prevented this from being possible. Although the full specs of his motorcade are top secret, it features a number of recognizable things, such as cars for his entourage, a medical team, endless security, communication blockers, and a counterattack team. But Kim Jong-un also has a car in his convoy that no other leaders officially admit to having, as it contains a dedicated toilet. This pretty much means he never has to use a public convenience, and while this may seem like a security precaution, it's actually much stranger. The first reason for it is because as the supreme leader, the official narrative is that he doesn't ever actually need to use the bathroom like us mere mortals. The second reason, though, is the fear that someone may try to collect his waste product and use this to try to learn about any medical conditions he has, and try to use this information against him. Aw, that'd be terrible.
Watch our Vehicles playlist for more top 15 videos about amazing vehicles. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best vehicle videos.